please, if you're a studio executive and you're watching this, do not ruin Back to the Future. Do not ruin Back to the Future by making a female Back to the Future. It would be terrible. Think about it deeply. This is not a good idea. Seek out original ideas from original creators who have original stories to tell. Please, please.
Chris, we asked you previously why 99% of today's movies are garbage. That was a few months ago that we asked you that question. The videos got well over 5,000 comments. A lot of people had opinions on it. Upon reflection, is there anything you'd like to add or clarify that you didn't with that video?
Well, I mean, that could be an ongoing podcast. Why 99% of movies are garbage. It's really documenting all the mistakes that filmmakers make. I think one that I've seen as a trend that I think I failed to mention in the previous video was the gender swapping of characters. I think that, I mean, you know, I've seen how people think that that's well, we'll just do a female Terminator, or we'll just do a female, you know, a female version of X. I always think it's better to start with an original character and have and approach a film that way. I find it kind of pandering on Hollywood's part to we're just going to do this franchise, which we already know is proven success, and we're going to gender swap the lead. I think that's lazy. I think it's pandering to a certain audience, and that audience may not even really be there. And I think that fans of those franchises completely see through that. And it's you know, I mean, the latest the Mad Max movie that we did that they did recently, Fury Road. He's really kind of the side character, but what Charlize Theron did, she created this amazing new character. I think that was maybe a right way of doing that. The wrong way might have been the you know, Terminator film Dark Fate, which I'm not sure who loved that movie. I know it didn't do too well at the box office. I mean, Sarah Connor is already an amazing character. I don't know why you need to, you know, flip things and gender swap. I think, again, I think audiences see through that. An example, we talked about this earlier, was, you know, one that thankfully they'll hopefully never do, which is Back to the Future. There has been rumblings of bringing the Back to the Future series and doing a reboot of Back to the Future. There was a rumor years ago, and I pay very little attention to rumors because most of them, we all know, are BS. But there was a strong rumor that Justin Bieber was going to be in a reboot of the Back to the Future series. But that's a franchise I don't think you could ever gender swap the lead, like, and call that lead Mandy McFly, and having some sort of weird relationship with a younger version of her father would be very awkward. I mean, that just doesn't work. And then there are cases where gender swapping is irrelevant. For example, the upcoming Dune movie with Timothée Chalamet, there's a character named Dr. Liet Kynes, which I've read the novel, obviously seen the 1984 David Lynch film. The gender of that character is absolutely irrelevant. Not relevant to the character whatsoever in that case. Maybe in some ways can kind of add to something. When you're doing it just to pander to an audience, audiences see through it. I really feel that when you are pandering, whether it's queer baiting or, you know, gender swapping characters or race swapping, it's lazy. It's lazy. You know, I'd rather see more original characters that are, you know, maybe by female creators, Black creators? Where are their voices? If you're simply taking, creators who have done things and just changing the gender or race, I find is lazy. And I think that audiences, they're not really in favor of it. It seems to not be working. And I think if Hollywood just leaned a little bit into originality, a little bit more into originality, and took some risks with new creators. See, that's the thing that I think people don't understand, is that the original creators of those characters, they get money, right? They get money. And so I don't understand why there's not more of an effort to find people who have created original characters that are all across the spectrum of ethnicity or gender, and make movies with those characters, right? I mean, the original creators of those properties would profit. So I think pandering is probably a huge mistake, and underestimated how savvy audiences are, that they see through it.
So if I come in and say, I want to do a male version of Heather's or Jennifer's Body or Mean Girls, hey, there's male bullying, there's all sorts of stuff. So it's John's body, okay?
Sure.
So that's not probably going to work, or it's so blatant that I'm flipping it.
Here's the thing: I've seen that story, so I've seen those stories. Changing the gender is not going to is sort of, make me care about the character, because the point is this. I identify with so many characters that aren't me, right? And I think that you have to create something that comes from the essence of what that character is. Ripley is a character I loved as a kid. Ellen Ripley, played beautifully by Sigourney Weaver in 2.5 good movies. But I think that just the sort of, I think it's just lazy to do that, but it's an opportunity for an audience to identify with someone that isn't them. And I feel like you have to, as an audience member, be capable of seeing the world through someone else's eyes. I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it in another video, but like, you have to, as an audience member, have the ability to identify with someone who's not you. That's how you know even the storytelling is great. If you can take just sort of a regular dude like me, and I can identify with a woman who's maybe not a woman who's white, who's maybe not a woman from the United States, who's maybe a woman that's going, that to me is great storytelling. I would say another film that I thoroughly loved, Amélie, French film Amélie, right? Okay, not a woman, I don't speak French, a lot of her experiences very different from mine, but I identified with her. I was on her journey. And so that to me is, storytelling is great when, vastly different people can identify with someone that is not themselves. I don't need to see me reflected in a film. In fact, I prefer not to. I want to see someone new and interesting and different. And I think that what's lacking in the storytelling is making these stories universal. So the gender and ethnicity is irrelevant. It should be irrelevant.
Yeah, just, you had said earlier about the Marty McFly character turned into
Yes.
Andy McFly. And you're right, it wouldn't work especially for the one fact of flipping it with the dad. Now, to have a Biff character that's female, that's bullying her, that actually would be interesting. And then her sort of going on this journey and playing in a band.
See, now you're being like a studio executive and you're pitching the female Back to the Future. Please, I will say this to camera, which I know my eye line is you, but I'm going to say to camera, please, if you're a studio executive and you're watching this, do not ruin Back to the Future. Do not ruin Back to the Future by making a female Back to the Future. It would be terrible. Think about it deeply. This is not a good idea. Seek out original ideas from original creators who have original stories to tell, please, please, so I don't have to do a third version of this video, please